session, and we're going to copy the chat into the Zoom. And thank you all, and go for it. The mic is for you two now.
Great, thanks so much. Can everybody hear okay?
Yeah.
That's the first check. And Ridhi's on the call too. There you are.
Yeah.
Great, I would imagine some people will come and go, yeah.
If you need us to put up a slideshow, we can make you host so you can screen share. And if you have trouble with that, you can email something to us and we can put it up. Otherwise, go for it.
Great, thanks.
I'm going to spotlight both of you. What was the other person?
Ridhi Cruz.
I'll get her taken care of here. I got it. There we go. Welcome.
All right, great. Thanks so much. I'd like to just read the description to kind of help kick off. I know that you are all coming from a presentation, and a lot of you are staying into this presentation. And so here's the description that we put together for this session. During these uncharted times, when crises and disasters continue to compound and cause harm, it can be difficult to assess what personal actions to take in response to and in continuous preparation for a rapidly changing world. How can we be more well-prepared and not just to face the epic challenges of our time, but also to answer the call for shifting patterns of our own behavior in regards to the ways that we understand leadership, allyship, and mutual aid. And so that's where we are. And I would say that this is an emergent presentation. Really wanted to find a way to bring some of these questions, not out of having all the answers, but in wanting to answer these questions with you all. Ridhi and I work together with the City Repair Project. Ridhi's co-executive director and the events director, and we together are running the Urban Permaculture Design course for City Repair, and in the process of considering how our course content is evolving to better meet the times. You know, taking the course online certainly is one of the larger aspects of that, but there are a lot of kind of more subtle and significant ways that we're doing that. So this presentation is really helping me gear up for meeting these changing times as a white cisgendered male. And so thanks for coming on this learning journey with us. And Ridhi, do you want to introduce a little bit more of yourself?
Sure, thanks, Matt. I'll say that I am happy to be here, and also really looking forward to having a more interactive session with you all. So, you know, I like it when I hear comments that include, oh, I wish we had gotten to hear more from the presenters, because that makes me feel like, cool, I did a good job of handing over the power and the mic back to y'all so that people can connect with each other, and through that connection and relationship building, a lot of magic happens. And then I feel like my role as a facilitator is comes to bear. So thinking about, as the times change, what are the appropriate forms of leadership, and what is my role, right? Like within all of this, and how can I best utilize it? So I wanted to give you a little heads up that we're going to be asking some questions for you to ponder on, and also like maybe we'll give you some time to journal, but then also talk to each other. I'm thinking with the group, we weren't sure how many people were going to be there, so I'm just going to share. I think, Matt, with 46 participants, let's go ahead and do breakout rooms so that people can talk in smaller groups, and then we'll come back to the larger group and then share. But then let's see, more than that, as a placemaker and a permaculturalist, what I'll say is that, you know, there's so much to be done and so much to say on this topic, but what I will ground is that as a person of color on stolen land, built by stolen labor, I think it's really important for us as land-based practitioners to think about how we can be thoughtful and not, you know, fall into patterns of like repeating patterns of colonization and oppression, no matter whatever good intentions we might have. And so in my practice of placemaking and permaculture, it's a lot more around the relationship that's not just to the land, but to the land as part that has been the ancestral homes and continues to be the place that several people have deep relationships with. So there's a way in which I think that that doesn't get represented often enough in our circles in permaculture. And so I'm here to be a part of that in whatever humble way I can. I'm still learning so much more to go, but wanting to bring that piece because I feel like so much can be done in terms of healing when we start to repair that part of our relationship as well.
Okay, thanks, Ridhi.
Mm-hmm.
We had initially thought we would be posting some questions in the chat as people signed on, but just as it happens, a lot of folks are already on the Zoom call here. And so as is typical with these things, we're going to be modifying a little bit as we go. And Ridhi, do you feel like we want to ask some questions first, or maybe have that be kind of all included in sort of the last or later phase of our time?
I was thinking, let's see, there's 45 folks. Maybe can we do a quick go around, because I feel like that helps bring everyone into the room a little bit, so everybody gets to see, oh my gosh, this is who all is here. And then maybe we can ask the questions and folks can talk about it. Does that seem?
Sure. And I don't know on the technical end if how breakout rooms would work. So feel free to message us with, yeah, go ahead.
David has the host computer near him, and then we have our own computers that we're engaging from. And from the host computer, he can create as many breakout rooms as you like. And then I believe you need to assign people to host rooms. Yeah. Or to breakout rooms. We can't let people choose. We have to put them in a room. So we can randomly go down the list and mix it up. But so that's where we're at. And let us know when that comes.
Should be good.
Perfect. Yeah. We'll let you know. And then Matt, were you saying you wanted to continue framing the topic a little bit more before we go into the breakout rooms?
Let's see. We had thought that having some introductory questions would kind of help us get into the sort of certain mind space and heart space, and maybe we could do that now. And we have until 4:30, is that, or sorry, 5 o'clock. What's our end time, just so we can make sure we're on schedule?
It's 5 o'clock, but we can totally, if you have the space for it and want to, we can go over another 15 minutes in Q&A to 5:15.
Yeah, okay.
That's when we do the next thing. So
okay, great. Should we start with the questions then, or introductory questions?
Sure.
And maybe I can read them off, Ridhi, if you'd be willing to type them into the chat also.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and our plan, if everything goes according to plan, we will break you out to discuss these questions, and then we'll come back together probably in maybe 15, 20 minutes, or whatever we decide is gonna work good. So the first sort of introductory question, and there are going to be a lot more questions than answers, I think, in this presentation. These are sort of some introductory questions to sort of get the juices flowing here. So the first one is, what barriers to participating in community are you experiencing during this time? The next question, I'll just read through them, and then they'll also be posted for you there. What skills and resources do you have to offer the community during this time? What has been most personally challenging as you navigate your internal and external landscape? And finally, in the work of becoming a stronger ally to marginalized, underrepresented, and more vulnerable groups and cultures, what resources do you draw from, and what seems to be missing or inadequate? All right, so those are the questions, and we can take some time to journal on them as tech crew works on the sort of back end of splitting us into groups. So it's going to take us a little bit of time to just think about and jot down some personal responses that you can use when we go into more of a conversation space. And, you know, we're sort of loosely structuring this, but of course we want to make sure that folks have an opportunity to share if they like to. And so maybe the voices that are more forward can step back a little, and the voices that are usually back can come forward a little bit more and kind of self-manage in that sense.
And real quick, how would you like the group set up?
Pairs. Can we do just pairs that are randomly allocated? And if Matt and I can stay in the main room, that would be great.
Okay. I guess pairs would make it pretty easy to share and not have too many.
So just everyone is going to be randomly put into
group of 2.
Group of 2. I'm kind of new at doing this real quick, so we're going to see how I can make that happen.
Yeah, we have a lot of patience for this kind of thing. You have to. So no problem.
Yeah,
Thank
and
you.
I missed typing those into the chat for everyone to reflect on. Could you repeat them again, and I'll get them there for reflection?
I sent them out already.
Oh, I was in the wrong part of the chat. I didn't see it at the bottom there. Thank you.
Yeah.
No problem.
And then the other thing I'll say is that, so there's 4 questions. They're all pretty pithy. So maybe choose the one that, like, start off with the one that works for you. Like, and of course, you know, here's another way to say it. Rather than questions, think about them as invitations, so you can interpret them how you want and respond. And then we will time it. I think there's a way that the host can share, like, hey, switch who's talking. So first one person take the time to answer the question. And I'm going to give you 2.5 minutes just as a guide. And then we'll send something out to be like, okay, it's the time for the second person to go. And then the second person can pick a different question or pick the same question to respond to. That's fine. We'll give you 10 minutes altogether. So ideally, you know, it doesn't have to be so rigid in terms of like one person sharing and the second person sharing. Use those as guideposts so that the sharing can be equitable between the two of you. Because, you know, sometimes some people need allocated time to be like, take up this space. And sometimes you're just like in a dialogue and it flows much more naturally. So whatever works for y'all, let that, just use that again, like to take the space, take the platform to share and connect with this other person. Yeah.
I had a question. We've had a few sessions where we've called on people and they might not be present even if they're in the room. Can we have a protocol that people can put themselves back in the main room to be reassigned or something if they find themselves alone?
Perfect. Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay. I'm about to just throw people in rooms. I want to make sure that I have everything set up here. Okay. Broadcast to all.
There's of course nothing wrong if you find yourself in an empty room and there's no mechanism to come back. Just consider the questions yourself. But we love it for being interactive if possible.
Yeah, that's a great point, Matt. Like if you're feeling like you just want to take the journaling route and don't really want to connect, yeah.
I was thinking it would be sort of the technical circumstance that would decide that. But yeah, sure. So we're ready when you all are to break into rooms, and we'll see you in a little bit. Okay.
10 minutes.
Yeah.
I'm starting to send people right now.
Great. Thank you.
And as you disappear, if you do find you're in an empty room, there's a little button in the right-hand corner of your screen that says, like, I think it says leave breakout room or something like that. And then you can go back to the main room.
Yeah.
Great.
That's good. And I'm leaving you 2 in here. I'm sending everybody else. And you can let me know what you want to broadcast to everyone, because I think I can broadcast to everyone.
Yes, you can.
So David, Margaret saying she wants to just journal, not feeling folks enough to connect at the moment. So Margaret,
got that covered. Carmen and Peter, ready to go. You said Margaret, right?
Yeah, that was Margaret alone.
I'm wondering if there is a way to automate this, but maybe not.
Oh, there is. Oops, I should have mentioned that, David. That's why I said random, because I think you can just assign and pick 2 people per room and then just say randomize.
Well, I didn't see that option, but we're just gonna, I guess I'm almost done here, so we should,
Great.
we'll be,
Participants going
people
down.
might be close to someone with their, close to their first name. So it's kind of random by whatever their parents gave them as last first names, I guess.
We've come a long way since the first permaculture teleconference that I think happened in 1982. So it's probably much smoother.
Yeah, we've actually had a really great time technologically. It's been really fun. Things have flown, and we had a great time with music too, you know?
Cool.
Very cool.
Once they're assigned to a room, then we'll just be good for now. So,
Great.
And David and Shales, if y'all wanted to do a breakout group too, I think David,
I will probably be, I'll probably be broadcasting because do you guys have the option to broadcast to everyone? Do you see that button on your end or no?
No, because we're not hosts.
Okay, I can probably make you one here. Hold on,
Yeah.
I'm almost done making this move over.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you should assign us if we can, and not to each other, so that we can just be people.
Oh yeah,
That would be good.
I'm gonna go ahead and do that. Although there's 2 Shales, maybe, or I don't know. I just send you to.
Oh yeah, you have 2 computers.
Yeah, I'm the one that's on. That
Oh,
I
you're
have my
still
screen
on. I just sent the other one to someone.
Oops.
Oh,
Oh,
that's
no.
fine.
I'll just send you to that same room again. How about that? You'll be 2 of you going to that same room. What is your?
I just
That's
had
great.
an empty room there. Me and Brent, and
I'll-
Brent wasn't responding.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks, Blair.
What room number
got it.
are you assigned to?
I don't.
I don't know which breakout room number it was.
Okay, I'll get your name in just a few seconds here. Oh, did I just? I might have just sent. I might
I'm
have
still here.
your partner to a room by mistake.
Oh,
Hold on a second here.
Ridhi
I'll
will
just-
find her way back out if that happens. Yep.
Yeah, she can come back out. Sorry. I'm assigning you to your room for unfortunately, sorry. Okay, assign Tom. There you go. You said Sylvia didn't? No, Sylvia's fine to go. Sylvia.
You're
Who said they-
muted, Shale.
Oh,
Who
I
said they-
need
who
to
said they
be
didn't-
reassigned again too. I had an empty room for that while.
Hold on a few seconds. You can find out what your room number
I
is.
got really sad when I was alone in there with iPhone.
Sarah,
I didn't want to be.
16. Samantha. Hold on a few seconds here.
You did great.
I'm back. Merla. It seemed Mary was taking a break.
And it's Ridhi, right? Is it okay? I'm going to make her a co-host, and then I'm also going to spotlight her. Add spotlight. There we go. You're back on spotlight,
Thank you.
and I've almost got everyone. Who said they didn't? Or Margaret didn't want to be assigned, right? Shauna,
Correct.
17.
I got sent to an empty room or with someone that wasn't responsive. Samantha.
Okay. Do you remember what room number that was?
16.
Okay, I'm gonna send someone else to that room also. I'm just gonna add a 3rd person.
Okay. I don't
You
know
can
how to go back to it.
We'll see what we can do. Maybe you can try to.
Oh,
Same for room 11. Merla, I was in with Mary, but I think she was taking a break. She didn't respond.
Okay, so you're Merla.
Mm-hmm.
In room 11?
Yeah.
Okay, hold on a second here. Who wants to join in a room with her that's still not assigned?
I will.
Okay, so that would be, I need to move you. What room number are you?
What?
Oh, the room I was assigned to was 11.
Okay, I'll move someone into your room in just a second.
Okay, I don't know how to get there.
So, Julie, I'm going to send you to 11. What room were you in, Julie?
I didn't get the room, but it was just with iPhone, the one that I was in
Okay.
before iPhone.
I'm sending you to 11 right now.
Okay. And
Okay.
Shales, when you spoke, I didn't hear you even though you were unmuted.
Okay, Galen, you need to be moved somewhere. I'm going to find you real quick. I'm going to look up while this is so I can learn how to do this the easy way. Galen, moved you to, who's in a room that, or who needs, Sylvia is not going to be assigned. Julie, have you moved over?
No, I'm still here.
Okay, is there a way to go back to your room?
Merla is too.
No.
Okay,
Room 16, no one was responsive.
okay. Can we
Yeah,
figure out how to
room
get back?
15, there was nobody else responding either.
Okay.
But some folks just have it open all day and are just, you know, doing what they need to do.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true.
Right.
Okay, I'm going to see if I can't.
Create another room for some of us.
Or
Yeah,
just put everybody else that's here into one room and maybe we'll
Yeah.
have a little bit more of a robust discussion.
yeah, I'm going to have to. Okay, so what, so Galen, I'm sending you to a room real quick.
Hi, Galen.
If I can find, okay, here we go. I'm sending you to room 17. Here we go. Okay, and then who else is still? Galen, did you have another? See if I can make you go.
Galen's still here.
I reassigned you, but how do I send you there? And I also made Ridhi an administrator or make co-host. I'm going to make Matt you a co-host, so you guys might be able to just jump on and know how this works.
I think it only works for the host, not co-hosts.
Okay, well, let me see which one of you guys want to be host. I'll make you host and then you guys can figure it out.
Ridhi knows how to do it. Make Ridhi the host.
Okay, that's good. And when you're
Probably knows better than me, though I wouldn't necessarily decide that for Ridhi.
that's really interesting because it's not allowing me to make you host.
Oh, is she already a co-host?
Yeah, that's why I'm gonna taking that away and then I'm gonna make you host. Okay. And then you can just send that back to me.
The co-host, yeah.
Oh.
I don't know if it's gonna work. I wonder if
it's not allowing me to make you a host, honestly. I'm gonna see if it'll allow me to make Matt a host.
It might need to be someone in your own domain.
Matt is also a co-host, so.
Let me see if I can't. Yeah, it's not allowing me. Okay, so let me just fix that. Let's do our best here.
You're doing great, David.
Oh yeah, we're just rolling along. So we got Mike. You need to be assigned somewhere. Maybe someone can look up how we can send people to a room.
I've been sent to room 13. Norm Frampton was supposed to be the other person, but he is muted and his video is turned off.
Okay.
One solution would be that everybody that's just on this screen here could be a group, and Ridhi and I can message each other privately if we need to kind of exchange anything, or we could even find an alternative method. So
I was curious, just before we totally give up, although I think doing it together is great, is everyone here already been in a room? Is there anyone who hasn't been put in a quiet room?
Yeah, I know how to reassign people, but I can't send them to their room.
You can unmute to answer if you want. No, so that's why everybody here must have already been assigned a room, and I guess you can't assign us or something. So this is it, huh?
So we can actually send ourselves to our rooms.
Okay, you got to be reassigned. All right, could you tell us how to do that so that everyone else knows how to go to their room? It sounds like I'm sending my kids to their room.
Yeah, if you tap breakout rooms, you can go to a room. I just didn't know if I should go to one other than the one I had been sent to where there was nobody there.
Yeah,
But
why
if you
don't
talk,
Should I go to room 11 or not? I don't want to be alone.
so what
Ditto.
room are you in, Julie, right now?
I see that it wants to send me to room 11 now. When I
Okay.
click breakout rooms.
Mary's in room 11. There's 3 people in room 11. So if you can just go ahead and join that to see if there's someone available there.
Sure.
I'm going. I'm gonna.
I'll be
I'm
right
gonna
back.
try to go there too. Bye.
Okay, yay, bye.
And then, okay, yeah. So 2 people actually left the room. I put 3 in. So Mike, I'm gonna. Who here has a pair? So we make some pairs real quick. Anybody left over that wants? I know Mike. We have a Mike that needs to be assigned.
Mike and Sylvan, maybe?
Sylvan, didn't you say you didn't want to be assigned?
You're
Well,
on mute. You're on mute, Sylvan.
sorry,
Was Sylvan the one?
I was sent to room 15 and the other person wasn't, there was no camera, they weren't responding at all.
Okay. I'm going to assign you to room 15. You're in 15. Sylvan, I'm just going to, why don't you go back to that room and I'm going to send someone else there too. And I'm
Mine was room number 4, and I just went there again, and still Brent with no response.
I'm going to go ahead and send you to, what did you go, 15?
Yeah.
Okay, you're going to 15 right now. You can go ahead, Paul.
15, there we go. Thank you.
Blair.
All right, and then
Samantha, I was
think
in room
Mike is
16
left.
and I tried to go back and there was no one there as well.
I'm about to send Mike there to 16.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks for your patience, Mike.
Mike,
Okay.
was it 15 or is it 16?
16.
Okay, I'm sending you to 16 right here, not Mike, and then you'll be good to go. All right.
All right, see you in a little bit.
I'll go there. Bye.
Okay.
Okay, is there anybody else that sitting here that needs to be reassigned? Mike is still here. Do you figure out how to go there, Mike?
I don't know how to go there at all.
I think get to the bottom of your screen, possibly. You're clicking rooms is my guess.
Okay.
You see join breakout room?
Actions. Breakout rooms. Here we are. I see.
Okay, just
Breakout
Great.
rooms.
Good luck.
All right. Okay, now I have a space where I can send messages to all. So if you guys would like to, you can just type up what you want me to send to all and I'll make that happen.
Yeah, since the initial folks have been in for maybe 8 or so minutes.
Okay, room 16. Here we go.
Great, thanks, Mike. Do we want to announce like 5 more minutes or something like that? Some
Yeah.
people have a short time, but other people have more time, and so just kind of balance out.
All right, just did that.
Saw that. Great, thank you very much. Good job. I know that's a hard thing, and it's always tough being kind of in the pressure seat. I don't resent the role at all.
Oh, no problem. I actually, in the middle of it, I had a little bit of a kid meltdown, but I muted myself for a second, and then I was like, I should probably mute the video because the kid was screaming. I told them they can turn on the television, and that's a real treat for them.
Yeah, that's been known to work. Cool. So maybe Rudy and I will take a chance just to chat a little bit about holding the rest of the space when folks come back in around 4:20 or so. Do we want to have a sort of report back right away, or do we want to kind of save that for a little bit later? The report back might be kind of informed by the conversation and some of the group stuff, the whole group stuff.
Yeah, I wonder if our closing circle can be more robust, and so we can share just how we can choose to answer one of the questions or whatever, and then give it to them to share, like maybe in a line, because I feel like there's probably 47 people, but there's probably 20 active participants who want to share, so it won't be that long.
Cool. Ridhi, as you can see in some of the text that I wrote up, I'm not covering placemaking in a lot of detail, just kind of making a reference. And I might as the conversation goes on, I might pull a couple quotes from an article from Project for Public Spaces on placemaking when Black Lives Matter. But that's just sort of like, if I need it, I'm kind of more interested in just sort of framing some questions and some perspectives. And if yours was kind of naturally more heavy on just sort of like the placemaking part, I feel like as we kind of discussed, that would round it out super well.
Okay.
And also excited, and maybe as part of either a closing or a follow-up, to know how we might utilize some of the information that this time frame, this session is sort of invoking and capturing. And that's, I guess, something to pose as a question to the organizers. Hopefully, I would imagine that that's the case just anyways, in terms of gleaning from sessions to kind of ask big questions in reflection of the movement and the organization and that kind of stuff. I'd imagine there'll be some fruitful stuff that can help, take us in at a more rapid pace in a good direction in terms of inclusion and, addressing some of the, I guess, like criticisms or just kind of critiques, places that we can do a better job addressing just as a movement, all of us, me, everyone. So I don't know how that would look as a follow-up or just sort of a revisiting, but Ridhi and I believe, are both pretty open to what that could look like. So that'll be sort of an emergent thing too.
Is that a question for me? I'm sorry.
Oh, it's just that there could be some outcomes that we want to find like a way and a place to kind of apply them to.
Wow.
That's a really good question.
I almost think that just maybe for our closing, when people get to speak, that we actually ask a question, like ask that question, like how do you feel? You can respond, given where we are, like what's your response looking like? And
given where we are, what we've heard.
Yeah. And
Well, what I've done in the past when we ask questions for this group thus far is we, if people unmute their mic, we call on their name, and they just slides up, and so that people who want to speak, that way I can eliminate the people who just aren't even here.
So when people unmute, it brings them closer to the top of the list. Is that
and then I can can call on them if you wanted me just to call, hey, blah, 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 just calling them out. That's the way.
Great. That's helpful. And since we had 4 questions, if there were just like a few people who volunteered to share their feelings in answer to that, it'd be nice to get kind of like a few folks for each one. And so it helps organize it a little bit more. And then we're not feeling like we have to fit, so many into each question, and just be kind of who feels called to speak for specific ones, 1 through 4.
Yeah.
I like that.
That sounds really good. You'll probably get a good number of people. It's a pretty active group thus far. So
cool.
Maybe shall we say we aim to have 2 people answer per question, and then anybody can go, kind of thing, if anything else people want to add.
Yeah, maybe that's how we'll kind of pace it. And if we end up having additional time, which I doubt we will, but if we do, could definitely make room for any additional unspoken things that are moving within you that we could accommodate. But my guess is that we're going to be right there, maybe just like a little bit over 5.
And when people come back, are you and me talking, or are we letting folks talk?
Well, I imagine kind of sharing what sort of like what I wrote and what sort of my what I'm desiring to kind of invoke and think about and let sink in, and then I would imagine you would also share, not directly in reflection of that, but in the way that's just naturally complementary with like more of a perspective on placemaking. And at that point, we could engage in a more active conversation, and with the mind on time, saving what we want to save for questions at the end. The question part might be like 20 minutes. And so we might not that might be the participatory part, is responding to the questions. And folks are gonna be coming back soon. It's a little after 4:20 now, and so
I can call them. I would do is I just close the rooms, and they call them back. Is that how I'm supposed to do it?
I think so. I think it gives them 1 minute to come back or something like that.
Okay, you want me to go ahead and click that?
Sure.
Yeah,
You
sure.
ready?
I think so.
All right, we're got that rolling. I also looked up what it takes to randomize the room, so I know how to do that next time
Yeah.
instead of manually click them all in there. So
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
we did do breakout rooms. We did do one breakout room where we just sent the kids over there earlier, and that was easy.
Uh-huh.
It's a single breakout room. Just had people say, "Hey, I want to go to the room."
Nice. Yeah.
All right, we're coming back in, so I think it'll just take a few minutes for everybody to rejoin.
Yeah, it's at 24 seconds left.
Okay, great. I saw a new face pop on. I thought we were coming back, but somebody maybe just rejoined early. So we'll all be back together momentarily.
Yep. I see people coming back.
Hey, here we all are. I think that process was instantaneous, and so if you're still on the call, you should be in this room now, the group room. And thanks for taking the time to do that. We're going to ask for some sharings and responses to the questions as sort of one of the later parts of our time together. So hold on to that and let that the thinking and the sharing just kind of sit with you as we continue with the time that we have together. I'd like to share some thoughts. I've written them down for clarity that are stirring within me, that I've been really simultaneously excited and apprehensive about, sharing with the community here. And so however it lands, I hope that that you hear this deeply. And so here we are. This is sort of, I think, where I'm at and where many of us are at. Our collective heads are spinning. Vulnerability factor seems to be at an all-time high. People don't know what to believe, or are so set in their beliefs that there's a palatable fracturing within what have otherwise been fairly tight circles and communities. The impact of social media here is, of course, just coming into more full clarity with the documentary that just came out, and just knowing that we're being used as a product and having awareness around that and how we're participating in that. And it's true that throughout history, destabilization has always been exploited for political gain and increasingly incited for it. Call it a coincidence or a crime against humanity, but one point is coming into focus rather quickly. This timing has created a perfect storm, the full magnitude of which is still a bit offshore, which is frightening when we assess the damage that's been done already. Overlay this pandemic and the lost lives and livelihoods with the huge uptick in racially motivated violence and intimidation, rapidly approaching presidential election, where the likelihood of the circumnavigation of the remaining vestiges of our failing democracy seems greater by the day, on top of what has already been a decade of record-setting fires, floods, and extreme weather events. We are experiencing a super seriously traumatizing occurrence requiring massive mobilization. That is the superstorm. Should we be taking to the streets or staying inside? Should we be rooting in place or establishing resilient systems in other places, like settling into an eco-village? I see a lot of activity with those questions these days. Should we be investing in materials and supplies in anticipation of major disruptions to the global food system, or should we be directing more resources to mutual aid efforts for those who have already been displaced, if we're more or less good where we are? How much can one person do? Let's take a huge breath together, okay? How are you? And how well are you holding space for what's happening? And also keeping anxiety and depression from washing over you? And what help do you need when it does? What thoughts run through your mind and what feelings occupy your heart as you weigh the magnitude of the issues against your own capacity and limitations? And then let us ask ourselves this too. If I am a white, able-bodied, heterosexual person coming into deeper awareness of how much privilege I've had in regards to being able to choose whether or not I'm entering the fray or subscribing to precaution, how am I supposed to weigh my own discomfort and need for safety as the call to take action grows louder and stronger, and some of these actions do not guarantee that I'll be able to stay out of harm's way? At a time when ignorance and privilege has seen historic movement towards more collective awareness of the fight and plight of our non-white, non-conforming friends, how too can we as individuals, collectives, and as the movement of movements avoid white saviorism that for some time now has been one of the primary critiques of the permaculture movement, coupled with intellectual and cultural appropriation? Do you ever wonder about what we know as permaculture would be like if it wasn't, quote, founded by white men? Would it even be the movement? Would it be existing in other ways and taking different forms? And now that we are learning and have been willing to some degree to feature voices that share these concerns, that our movement has this dirty underbelly of appropriation and saviorism, as evidenced by the topics and discussions of this and other permaculture groups over the last few years, so that's a good thing. How does this awareness inform our crisis response strategy? Really, things that are tugging on my heart and my mind as of late. Kind of going deeper into that, how does the permaculture movement intersect with the Black Lives Movement, the movement for Black lives, movement for missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls and others? Is our movement's toolkit for addressing these changes outdated, misapplied, or simply never present to begin with? The crossover certainly exists. I was looking at some of the kind of focal areas for the Movement for Black Lives platform, and found a lot of crossover there, and personally not sure where our movement is contributing to this in an effective way. Those are restoring the Voting Rights Act, demilitarization of police and private prisons, decriminalization of Black and non-white political activity, universal health care, abolition of the Electoral College towards stronger representation, not weaker, of course, and to break up large banks and corporations, just to kind of name a few. And would the movement have been more determined and effective if its leaders and followers were quite literally more on the line with their own lives? And I know that some of you may be, but as a whole, it is a question that I'm asking. And now with the remarkable growth, as far as I can see, of the Black Lives Movement and the outpouring of support that the movement has received, now that the atrociousness of police brutality is both more visibilized and more heavily impacting white allies and supporters of BLM, which is making it a lot more in the news, has the taste of tear gas and the sting of less lethal weapons put some fire under our asses to focus the promise of permaculture on the explicit support of Black lives? What would this look like? And if it's happening in places, what is it looking like? Are we seeking the active consent to understand the most appropriate ways that we can be helping? Or are we opting for being generally supportive in the work that we're already doing? So I warned you, not a lot of answers, but a lot of questions. And so as you've been hearing these questions and as that just sort of comes into you, hold that feeling and let's work with that. And Ridhi and I do a lot of work in the field of placemaking in the City Repair Project, and I should say but I would venture to say our understanding of placemaking and how it can be used effectively and how it can be misapplied is just becoming more and more evident. There's a lot of great information about how to avoid some of the unintended consequences of improving spaces and just the what can be assumed if we're saying, and I've been saying this for over a decade, transforming underutilized underutilized spaces into, you know, functional places, and what gets lumped into the category of underutilized. A lot of times that might not be the same assessment of somebody else. And is there a difference in perception if there's a group of white people organizing an action in like a parking spot in a city block versus, say, a group of Black men? Like, how long would that last? That was one of the questions that was asked in an article that I read recently called Placemaking When Black Lives Matter, written by one of the contributors for the Project for Public Spaces. So these are some of the questions and thoughts that I've been sitting with a lot lately. And I'd like to make some time for Ridhi to also share a little bit, just to kind of round out some of these questions and some of these holdings. And then we'll have the last part of our time together with some of the responses to your questions and what's kind of welling up within you. So thanks for listening so far. And I'll turn over to Ridhi.
Thanks, Matt. And so what I'll share to kind of bridge over is so much of how we respond is based on our positionality, our identity. And so I've been more in the kind of trying to understand how the various intersecting like powers of oppression, how that actually lands upon this body, not just the permaculture movement, like it's a homogenous entity or community, which can also be just like such a large umbrella that it at some point to me becomes pointless, you know, like, yeah, we're doing it for the community, but who is that, right? Like, we're composed of actual individuals with some shared identity groups. So the way that it's been moving through me is that anything that I do, anything that folks of color do, especially anything that Black folks do and Indigenous folks do, needs to be rooted in our own well-being. So, for example, we can't just be like, oh, BLM, Black Lives Matters, Portland wants to come up with this response to the BLM movement, but then we do that on the backs and the labor and on the and at a pace that doesn't allow for us doing the work to be the work, right? Like, there's this tension, I think, between the product, like what we are focusing on, the destination versus our path and journey there. And so how that's kind of landed on me in terms of my activism is again decolonizing my activism to ensure that my well-being is also accounted for in the process, so that anything that I'm working for, including racial justice, allows for me to have to enjoy some rest, to check ways in which my internalized oppression are working, but also to be in spaces that are not defined by whiteness. So instead of us thinking only about like how do like the work of people of colors to dismantle white supremacy, and I'm kind of like, yes, and it's also the work of white people to dismantle white supremacy culture, right? And so I don't want that responsibility to be put on the folks of color alone, especially. And I think that part of how I understand my call to action is in a world where, I mean, so many Black femmes and women have come up with incredible ways to think about this, but my thriving is an actual act of rebellion and revolt, right? And so wellness is not designed into the world that we live in, like wellness for me. And I would argue wellness for everyone. And so the glimpses of that we can find and tend to and shore up, I think are also extremely life-giving and important. And I think that's especially true for those of us who are coming into more awareness of how we have specifically been oppressed, and how therefore our actions play into our own oppression, but also into the oppression of others. So when it comes to placemaking then, you know, really thinking about what is my role here? And I know that a lot of it sometimes stems from belonging. And so I'll give you another thing around belonging, where I think, you know, many of us come from disrupted lines, ancestral lineages. And I feel like there's a way in which, and I want to also keep prefacing that I'm speaking as if there are BIPOC people in this room, because I also want to kind of push back against this notion that we're not here. Because I know when I'm sitting in a room that permaculture, like, you know, whatever room it is, and we address the group as if it were only white, then it in a way, it further disenfranchises my being, because it's not giving recognition that there's some of us over here who have other lineages, and we are here. And so through my lens, therefore, and my positionality, part of me rooting into my sense of place in a way that doesn't need to appropriate Native cultures, to have a sense that of belonging as a guest on this land, right? Like, I don't need to be taking certain practices or rituals or ritual objects to feel that. I think that can come from a relationship that I tend with the land. And then, of course, when we think about place, there's not just the land, but us embedded within it. And I think I also want to say, like, as a lot of us work on land in the permaculture movement, to think about land not just as the more than human community, but also as the body of all of these stories of meaning and loss and grief and celebration and birth and life and everything in between, that's been the holder and container for that. And so it's inherently also got our first peoples and all of the stories of humans and more than humans. And so it's not just this abstract kind of like non-human based entity that exists outside of us, that it's very much a part of who we are in this current moment, and a part of who we've been and who's been here all this while. And so so when thinking about placemaking in that sense, I feel like so many more opportunities for deeper connection with ourselves, with resourcing ourselves, and with working with land, and then working with all of the various stories and people whose those stories are tied to, becomes available. And so I want to encourage us all, including myself, to root into that collective narrative, and root into our own unique ways in which we can show up, and not try to walk in someone else's shoes. Because it's so much easier, right? Like, oh, this person's blazed a trail here, and that person's cleared a path there. And there's a way in which I think we often forget who we actually are and try to like walk somebody else's path. And in sometimes painful ways realize that, oh, I'm not being true to myself. And so yeah, I think what I'll probably like end with in terms of my share, and then we're going to go into the group, is that part of what I want to encourage is no other individual can tell you what you can do other than you. Finding that grounding within yourself, and finding that integrity, and really keeping to it. Because I think that what disturbance events or catastrophes and crises make space for is for us to really figure out in this moment what is important to me, and where am I, and how do I want to be. And so that, I feel like, you know, just surrounding ourselves by the people who see our full humanity and support us, sure, but that response is definitely our own individual kind of responsibility in terms of tapping into our essence and how we want to show up. So I think, yeah, that's how I want to frame it, is that our relationships to ourselves is something that I feel is really important and often underlooked and overlooked. And then we like get into these projects, these things that require deliverables and like, you know, we do something, feeling productive. And I think it comes at the cost of us really understanding what our needs are, what our desires are, and what's begging for recognition, acknowledgement, and an avenue for expression. So in these times, I think that the more that we are able to root into our own sense of well-being, the more I feel like we will, you know, be able to weather this in a good way. So
yeah, and acknowledging that like well-being is something that's been seemingly harder and harder to come by these days, and so navigating that, I think, yes, we can find our personal pathways for that, and I feel like I want and need the input of this community in figuring out what's working well for you, what's challenging for you, you know, what's aching inside of you, and you know what's occupying your hands out in the world, and how can we coordinate this thing so that we can be whole on the inside and be contributing to something real and truly effective, because the stakes are high, you know. And so how to not get too torn and pulled in a lot of directions and sort of in and out. And so the questions that we prepared for your consideration hopefully will stimulate some thoughts and some conversation. And if we're ready to go into some questions, I think we can transition to that, and we have a little bit of plan for that. Is there anything more that you wanted to add, Ridhi?
yeah, I guess the other thing I would add is, you know, again, when we're talking like, and I can't talk on behalf of folks with access to white privilege, but just noting that well-being, like when we talk about liberation, it means it can't come at the cost of somebody else's well-being, because that's not well-being, right? Like I mean a radical well-being. I don't mean an individuated, oppressive, like systematized way in which we are comfortable and our fragility is held. I mean it in a much more radical sense. So I just wanted to clarify, because I'm talking from my positionality as a person of color.
Mm-hmm. Great, thanks. And when you were all in breakouts, we had a quick chat about how to maybe best facilitate responses to some of the questions. And so we're thinking that it would work with the timing to have maybe two folks share some of their thoughts and conversation around each of the questions, and we'll just kind of go down the list. And so for the first one, what barriers to participating in community are you experiencing during this time? We'd like to invite about two folks that are on this call right now to just share in, you know, like a minute or two tops, I think, your response to that for us to all hear and hold. So, and I think that our call facilitators are waiting. We'll wait for you to unmute yourself, which indicates to them that you're interested in speaking, and then they'll call on you.
Anne Holiday.
Yes, that's me.
David, can we make Ridhi a co-host again?
Hello.
Go ahead, Anna. Go ahead, Anne. Yeah.
Yes, just let me introduce myself. I'm actually from England. I'm from the UK, and I have lived in the United States for a number of years. I was married to a physician, and I had a lot of white privilege, as you have described. I've also traveled in many countries and lived in many countries. I've lived in Europe, I've lived in India, I've been to China, I've lived in Australia and New Zealand as well. And I'd just like to make a point here that one of the things I think is a basic problem in the United States is that everybody has a label. And you're either a Caucasian, you're a white, or you're black, or you're Native American, or you're Latin American. It shouldn't be like that. Everybody is an American. And when you start off like that, there's already division. I'm in the latter part of my life. I'm an Ayurvedic practitioner now. I'm out of the medical system. And I am finding it's not just because of COVID. The isolation is the biggest barrier to me for integrating into a community of any kind. It's integrating into the white community if you're not part of a church, if you don't have children in school, if you go to a book club or something, there's no diversity there. There's no people that actually represent America as a whole. And that's a big barrier for me for moving forward with permaculture, because the people, I feel like it was devised by a group of white people who are also trying to bring the Aboriginal groups in Australia, but it's still a program that's been put together by white people to solve white problems, and we have to start looking at it from a different angle. That it's actually, we're all in this boat together. It doesn't matter what color we are. We're facing COVID. We're facing climate change and all of the things that go along with that. We have a pretty grim future, actually, to look towards. And so I feel that we have to become local. We have to work locally, and put out the big business who are pressing us all into working globally. We have to act.
I'm gonna cut you off so that we can get to some other folks as well. And I'm also gonna give you some live feedback and say maybe, and this is to the group, definitely speak from your own experience, but I would suggest not talking on behalf of other people and using should and would and those kinds of things, because what's true for you may not be true for me. And so I hear what you're saying, speaking from your experience. And so if folks can, moving forward, just say like, this is, represent themselves, but then maybe not talk about what other people should and shouldn't be doing. That's my request. So yeah, if there's anybody else who wanted to answer the first question, and I'm also going to say we are fast bearing down on the end of this session. So if you could keep it brief, if you could keep it to one sentence. I know there's a lot of emotions in the air. We're talking about very intense times, and I feel like, again, I want to advocate for you to maybe deep topics, take deep breaths. That's one of my invitations. So take a deep breath before you speak, and hopefully if you can share your response in one line, that would be greatly appreciated, so we can hear from more of you. Thank you.
Awesome. We have Mike.
Well, I've been experiencing a lot, watching a lot, thinking of COVID, and I could say a lot, but I'm going to really keep it really brief. This is something I need to tell myself, and so I just have 2 lines, and they are, may you live this perfect day, may no harm come your way. And that's a gift I can offer to others too.
Thanks, Mike. Does anybody else wanna go for the question number 2? What skills and resources do you have to offer the community during this time?
Shaylee?
Yeah, if no one else has anything to share, I appreciate locally how the how the farming community has really risen up to be inclusive. Every farmer's market has made a inclusive equity kind of stance as a local food system, and I'm grateful to be a part of communities of thinkers who are trying to be inclusive in how we make food and to build up that gardening. And what I can offer is just my experience making food and being a small food producer in a rural place and being a part of these collaborative systems of helping people garden, kind of that food sovereignty and even business sovereignty of having small businesses produce the food for people around us. I think that's a great place to try to, I don't know, help all of it, help people who are maybe struggling and share resources. So that's what I can offer. If anyone wants to talk local food systems and gardening, I'm always down for that conversation.
Thanks, Julie.
I came into this a little bit late, but I would say I love what I'm hearing, and thank you everyone for sharing. And I would say I would invite everyone to be brave and be bold and plant seeds where you think they may not germinate, but they may. And I have experienced this numerous times where you step out and work your furthest edge, work that edge as hard as you can, because the edge inspires people to come and join you. And we have had numerous events here with seed saving, seed swaps, community seed gardens, community gardens, all kinds of community-based things by people like taking a bold step. So be bold. Invite people to be bold and work their edge of their comfort zone and be an inspiration to your community to do the same. And so it takes a lot of energy to be a pioneer, to be the early adopter in a system, but it takes the early adopters to bring forth a movement. And we need a lot of early adopters.
Cool. Maybe not pioneers. I don't know about that one.
Well, that is in a general term. It's not.
Yeah.
A pioneer can be a pioneer species in an ecosystem, you know.
Yeah. And thanks, Brian. I do think language is important. And as someone who comes from a people that, yeah, I just advocate for us to be thoughtful about our language. So I'm gonna move us into question number 3.
I would just, can you clarify, how would you phrase pioneer then?
You know, Brian, maybe we can have another conversation offline on it, but I'm not gonna give you a solution, maybe just an invitation to reflect on how our language continues to bring forth is a continuation of violence and oppression, that we can word it better. So
okay, I'm looking to learn. So if you have a word that replaces pioneer, I'm all for it.
Great, thanks, Brian.
Thanks. Yeah, I could replace that one in my vocab too.
So question number 3, what has been most personally challenging as you navigate your internal and external landscape?
I'll go ahead and go. I would say vulnerability and fear.
Thanks, David. Anybody else wanna? I feel like Julie also spoke a little bit to this in the chat about, feeling of insecurity and stuff like that, which I would say is kind of, I know Toby doesn't like using zone 0, but I'm just gonna say in our more like internal landscape and zone 0, like tending to some of that. So yeah. if anybody else wanted to share on that topic.
Ciara's hand is up, if I pronounced your name correctly. You're muted though, I think.
It's because my headphone was in. What I was saying is, it's Kira, but I answer to many pronunciations.
Sorry.
I think for me, the feeling of overwhelm is internally what I struggle with. It's, I don't know, the piling up of all of the thoughts and issues, and the how do you get past that once you're so overwhelmed by it. I don't know. I think that's the biggest one for me.
Talk.
Do you think I could add to mine real quick? I want to clarify that it's not fear and vulnerability of myself. It's fear and vulnerability of what my words or my actions, the unknown of what effects they might have. So it's not like I feel vulnerable. I feel there's vulnerability globally for what I say, you know? And so I think my answer from that has been working on trying to only speak with humility and questions rather than statements. And that's helped me some.
Thanks, David. And Kiara. Hope I got that right closer. Kiara, were you done, by the way? Yeah. Okay. And then question 4, which is, in the work of becoming a stronger ally, like, does anybody want to answer that question?
If nobody else does, I will. I wrote it, so. No, you go ahead, please.
Oh yeah, so Julie put her reflections in the chat, and she and I were in the conversation together, and my feeling was very similar to hers about using pain that we've suffered as a means of connecting to other people's different pain that we can still resonate with. You know, we can still feel a commonality. One of the obstacles that I feel is not being connected enough to those voices that need to be amplified, and in order to no longer be marginalized. So that's one of my big obstacles, and it's particularly having moved in the past year, and you know, not have, and also because of COVID, you know, kind of being isolated physically and emotionally.
Thank you, Mala. Maybe one more on the ally question, the last one.
Sylvan's hand is up.
Go for it, Sylvan.
I recognize that I'm in a position of a lot of privilege, and I've been doing my best to figure out where to send some of those extra resources that I can spare. But the biggest barrier to me is actually not always knowing where to send resources. I sent some, you know, a load of stuff down to the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone, and recently sent some stuff to one of the native reservations nearby, but it's not like there's a place. I remember when I was a child, everybody had shipping containers and we collected donations for Ethiopia. It was very clear you brought stuff to the shipping container. And now there isn't that. I know there are people who have fewer resources than me, but there's not always a really easy way to transfer that excess. So that's been our biggest barrier here. And I think a lot of people at Sangha are feeling that as well, that we have access. We just don't know how to get it to the places where it's needed.
Yeah, thanks. I see a lot of kind of affirmations in the pictures here, and maybe just a question for the organization here, the Northwest Permaculture Convergence, to think about, as we think about with our organization and others, like what role can this organization play in making it easier and making things clearer? Because I agree, it's hard to know. There are so many efforts. Everybody has access to a lot of information, and we can all be kind of doing it on the side ourselves. But for a lot of us, myself included, I'm really looking for ways to support that are a little bit more kind of like sorted through, because I want to make sure that what I have to spare is getting utilized to the best of the ability. And it's hard to know, on the internet what causes are really delivering and that kind of thing. So, and then I'll reflect too that, like, of course, getting more directly involved is one way to know, but also coupled with some of the challenges in being able to be mobile and get out, and for folks that are taking the precautions for COVID to the degree that you're not able to do that, how to know and how to plug in. So yeah, let's kind of ask that one organizationally, because we're all here together, and this is a good time to help figure some of this stuff out. And I know it's a little bit after 5, and Ridhi, do we want to pull on any more for number 4 here? I think Margaret typed one in the chat.
I think, Marcy, if you can go ahead and just type it in, cool. Thank you for doing that. I just saw it. What I'm going to say is that was it Sylvan? To Sylvan's question, and perhaps to many others, there are, like, I know in Portland, for example, we have a mutual aid group, and it's a Facebook group, but there's also, like, several ways in which to engage. And I think what I'm gonna say is, like, okay, let's use some permaculture metaphors, right? Because this would be the moment to do it. And imagine, like, no one's gonna tell you, like, hopefully we're not practitioners where we walk on a site and we're like, sweet, where do I put the swale, and where's, like, the herb spiral? Like, we're not gonna just, our energy and our resources are not just gonna be thrown somewhere, right? Like, we have to observe and see, like, what's here, and therefore how it's like this enmeshment in a web, in a complex web of mutuality, right? Which is very much the mutual aid networking and other kinds of relationality. And so same thing, just like science, or like basically indigenous science, Western science, permaculture advocates just listening. And why I spend so much time talking about the individual scale is because when we have a trauma response and our amygdala, our like reptilian brain is just like on go mode, then we lose the ability, literally, we lose the ability to listen, right? To a lot of sounds, because we're in that hypervigilant activated state. And so literally and figuratively grounding ourselves so that we can feel like a sense of spaciousness, that when we offer something, it's coming in a way and with an energy that is grounded and resourced. That the other thing I would say is so important for the efforts and the resources, from my opinion, to be invested in initiatives specifically led by people, by Black, Indigenous, and people of color, and also where the impact is on the BIPOC community specifically. There's a lot that can happen that is not going back into the community. So I would say do that extra bit of work to find that, because that's part of it. We are reworking structures at such a on multi-scalar levels that these things are emergent. And so just again, like, treat it like you would making a relationship with anything, with a plant, with a piece of land, with a new neighbor. It's you are deepening your relationship to this movement. And and just to trust that process and move at that pace is what I would also offer. And I feel like those two things are kind of how I want to reflect back to you what I've heard, because a lot of it I'm hearing the anxiety, the overwhelm, like where do you put the resources, who do you put the resources to? And yeah, again and again, I'm just like, you know, the best resource you can, like one way to show up right now is to be in our own resilient forms, so that, you know, if somebody else is needing some reflection and just to bounce some ideas off, you know, like David, you were talking about feeling vulnerable and insecure, like having those conversations would be other ways that your folks can show up for each other and with each other. So I guess maybe the other thing I'll say is that every barrier, you know, like every problem is a solution. So another invitation for you to really, really dig deep to find it. And I offer a friendly amendment to the problem is a solution, to say the problem is a solution, is the problem is the solution, and so on and so forth. So to draw attention, like we're not gonna get to stand on stable ground with any one thing working for everything. It is all going to be relational and dynamic, and you're going to have to work with it and change it and, you know, shift in this and that. And that's true for any relationship.
Thanks, Ridhi, just letting that sink in, as I'm sure and hoping that that we all are. And like a lot of topics, the outcome of some of these thoughts and questions and sharing some responses will probably, you know, come in days and weeks, and as you're falling asleep or waking up. It's my intention to more directly engage with the Northwest Permaculture Convergence to help our community collectively answer some of these questions. And I have been more involved in the Northwest Permaculture Convergence in the past. I helped co-host the 2011 one. I think it was the first year it came down to Oregon. And you know, we all have so much on our plates and tables, and there's no shortage of work to do. And I think my intention here and with you all is to help us kind of move through some of the sticky points and how to navigate with so many overlays, and to not necessarily like feel complete resolve, but to feel more like we're doing some internal work and being effective externally, and to figure out like what forms we have to gather resources and to know what resources are available to us. Ridhi and I put a lot of time and effort into working some of these themes and questions into the design course that we're launching in November, our online course that I mentioned. And you know, that's not always accessible to folks, so we try to do one-offs here and there as well. And if you know of good resources and some connections that'll help us get a clear picture of how to navigate these really strange times in ways that are more directly supporting folks that have been needing broader support for a long time, with all these layers not helping at all, I'm interested in supporting that, and would love to have your input and your support in that. So I think that we're sort of close to closing here. And if Ridhi has anything else to say, I'd like to give Ridhi last word before we turn it back over to our lovely hosts and facilitators here with the Permaculture Convergence.
Yeah, I think what I'd like to do is maybe lead us in a kind of outgoing meditation of some sort, because I know I can feel like my elevated breath rate and heart rate. And so just even that awareness, like, oh yeah, let's do this. So as my invitation was, deep topics deserve deep breaths. Let's make sure we're at least oxygenating ourselves. So yeah, if you feel comfortable, close your eyes, If not, you find a spot that you can rest them without focusing too much on what they are on. And plant your feet on the ground as comfortably and fully as you can. And breathe into that, feeling how this land, just holds us, all of us, parts that we don't necessarily want to hold, parts that we don't want other people to see, that the land really can hold all of us. And, stretching shoulders, like, if you're noticing some crunchiness in any part of your body, like give it some love in whatever way you want to. I'll also invite you to like place your hand on your heart and on your belly. I've learned that this is a really powerful way to calm our nervous systems and bring us into a state of more relaxation and regulation. I want a better word for regulation. I don't like that word, but it's what I'm using for now. And I'd say nervous system ease and spaciousness, and taking more deep breaths to really, fill ourselves up, with all of these forces, these times, these uncertainties that feel crushing, feel like they're upon us, for us to like draw in this fresh air. Hopefully wherever you are, you get fresh air. For those of us who don't, where that's part of our journey to fight for fresh air for all of us. And drawing that into our beings to support us to be more fully ourselves in a way that brings about healing for all. And for that to really not just be words, and big buckets and umbrellas, but that for us to really live into that as deeply and as humbly as we can. For us to get to know and befriend our fears of exclusion, of hurting people, of making mistakes, for us to really build the resilience to sit with our failures, because they're our greatest teachers in some ways. And hopefully we can know that we will make mistakes and focus more on how we will respond to those mistakes, and with love for those who point them out to us, but also with love for ourselves. And the last thing I'll say is to, as we build this sense of spaciousness and resiliency within ourselves, to start to extend that in our, like, energetically, to include our ancestors, our loved ones in the present who are here with us now, our neighbors, like people we don't know, and like draw that out to really encompass all of us, so that even if all we can offer is a deep breath and a prayer, that is still something that we can offer. Blessings to all of you. May we find our way.
Thank you. To
Thank
tie
you.
in some of the questions that I heard Matt say earlier of how can we create a space to, one of them was, oh, I should have written it down. One of it was to share, I think it was ideas on, on good places, on good resources to invest in. During the organizing, we asked everybody if there was somebody or a project that they wanted donations funneled to, either themselves or others. So we have a list that we've kind of made of direct, I love this project, I'm involved with it. And so I'm not sure where that is, if it's in a spreadsheet. Some of it got onto the schedule, but I'll make sure that's at the end of our protocol doc. And maybe we can make a channel in Slack. And I want everybody here to know that that Slack group, there's a lot of opportunity for each person to have agency in making private discussions and public forums around ideas. Every hashtag pound is an idea. And if you want to bring to get people together around an idea, that's our forum. It's not just the board. We created the Northwest Permaculture Convergence Slack group as a place for people who care about permaculture, regenerative thinking to do what they will with this digital connecting tool. So please make it your own. You can use it to organize stuff in your community and talk about ideas and local things, whatever you want. Make a channel about it and invite people to it. You should be able to invite people there. And if you can't, something's not right with our system, because it should be easy for up to 1,000 people to join without us having to change the settings. And this organization will pay for a paid plan if we get that many people. So it's our space free of regulation and ads to have the conversation focused. So I'll have the invitation to use that. And thank you so much for this session. I put the questions that the thought invitations that were shared with us in the Pound 2020 community channel. So if you missed that in the chat, you can reflect on them there. And then there's also a channel where we're putting all the Zoom notes from each. So you can find that. And it's a great resource to search conversations. Slack means searchable log of all conversations and knowledge. So anything we put in there is for everybody's benefit. Unless you have a private channel, and then it wouldn't come up on the search. So that's what the Pound, the little lock is for, is secret stuff.
Yeah, thanks. I'll check that out. I didn't know about that until now.
Yeah, there's links to join, I think on our website and then on the protocol doc. We made a Discord too, which is more game people and not quite as whiz-bang as Slack, but it's still nice and more inclusive to people who feel that's too techy. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, the Discord is more of a social, like, get to know your people around you. It has been used by gaming a lot, but it doesn't have to be necessarily.
Yeah, Slack seems a little more work focused, but can be just as interactive and get to know your neighbor too.
Great. I look forward to seeing the outcome of some of that, and I'll check it out. So appreciate you setting that up.
If I could interject real quick, one thing I wanted to thank Ridhi for speaking up on nonviolent communication. As a group, we've committed to that. That was an email that was sent out by our president. And I want to encourage everyone, if you get a chance to, I also have another one that I'll also put up there and share with you guys, is nonviolent communication and the 4 agreements are both things. I have it on a single PDF sheet you can print out. I actually take it to meetings like this where I'm discussing hard things. And before I speak, I've learned to kind of go through, what am I about to say? And does this follow nonviolent communication? And this is a commitment for all of us here at this event. So if we could try to, as a group, really think about that. And if you have to print it out and waste a little paper for the sake of the future of peace and harmony, that's something us as an organization has committed to. On that note, again, I wanted to thank you guys for speaking your truth and speaking it in love and kindness. And I'm grateful for that. And I'm not speaking just as David here, I'm speaking the board wanted that to be something important. So moving forward, we're gonna actually have more discussions such as this, that I think it'll even be more important. And as you talked about, like the board facilitating this is one of our goals right now is to ask these questions. And I'm sure it's so thankful for you being here. And the next presentation is Sahal.